Mbaniriza nnyo nate wano ku pitch side mwebale nnyo mwebale ddala okubanga tubeera ffenna mwebale okuba nti content omulaba mu sharinga mu retweetinga mu commentinga. It's a very good thing because tukula ffenna. Pitch side onokola leero esazeewo okuba torch mu mwaka 2024 ebibaddemu in terms of sports ebintu byolina okumanya bigenze bitya era nga oba oliawo kiki kye tuyinza okuba nga tukyusaamu. So omulama gw'olunaku leero gwakutunuulira omwaka 2024 ne gye tuvudde omwaka gwonna mu byemizannyo ebyenjawulo basketball, rugby, cricket, omupiira byonna byonna tugenda kuba tubikutuusaako wano ku pitch side tube nga ate tuwayaamu. Sirinzeka ngenda kuba negattiddwako abantu bannamawulire bannange ababadde basobodde okuba nga nabo bagoberera ensonga zino mu mbeera nga bweyina okubeera era nga tugenda kuba tuwayiza ddala bannange babiri. Franklin Kaweru akolera Kawowo Sports, of course era tuli wano Kawowo genda kubanga negatako Franklin Sebo. And before you say a word, allow me to also introduce my other guest today, John Vianney Nsimbe, the encyclopedia from the Observer. Tusanyuse nnyo kubanga otwegaseko ku pitch side Sebo.
Nange nsanyuse okubeegatako.
Franklin Kaweru, welcome to pitch side, sir.
Thank you. My first time here probably. Good to be here after all this time. Simanyi bani wali okwesa ku pitch side. Ngoyina ba encyclopedia abalala.
Kaweru eno show yinza okukoma wano. Badde nsaba nze host nze nanyini show, so badde nsaba tugende mpola mpola.
Bansonyiwe.
Bera mukakamu.
Olumu ebintu bisoba.
That is as much Uganda you'll get here from Franklin Kaweru, really. Yeah, but gentlemen, Frank, let me start with you. 2024, sporting wise, how has this year been according to you?
Generally, for Uganda, I would say it has been quite successful for sure. If you look across the board, I mean, in terms of athletes who are the most important stakeholders in this, you're talking some medals at Olympics, you're talking a cricket team playing at the World Cup, you're talking Uganda returning to AFCON again, you're talking the success that the Cranes had in the first five. It's been a lot of success for Uganda for sure. A good year for sport. Yeah,
you've literally broken. I think pipped into my script. But Vianney, a very interesting year. Kaworu mentions quite a number of things, and we've tried to, cover most of these things. All of us here, as we are on set. Yeah. But your analysis of 2024, mwaka gubade good year.
Well, I think that this year more than anything was predominated by the Olympics. Wherever there are Olympics, you don't think that there can be any other sporting event that can eclipse it. So looking at Uganda at the Olympics, I think was going to be the most predominant thought on most people's minds. And you think that while Uganda were not the best at the Olympics, but still the Ugandan fans were pleased by the kind of performances that were put up, and in the shape of say Joshua Cheptegei, looking at of course Peruth Chemtai, those medals that were brought in were a huge success for Uganda in many ways, because there have been Olympics that Uganda has been to and not been able to get a single medal, but there's been some bit of consistency over the last 3-4 Olympics, where you can see that at least every Olympic games that are held, Uganda at least gets somebody on the podium, which is in many ways pleasing.
All right, let's get started with basketball. We all know that the City Oilers continued their dominance in the National Basketball League and won a 10th straight title. But I think the factors off the court made more headlines than them winning the title. The departure of some of the players before the playoffs, major players for them. We all know them: Tony, C, Jimmy Enabu and all. Franklin, how do you look at the Oilers? I don't want to look at the road to BAL or the Elite 16 and then the 10 titles. Just take your eyes off the court. What do you make of the City Oilers now moving forward?
I think I want to look at the Oilers from the administrative point of view, I want to start there. What the oil has demonstrated over the years is that their backroom, the administration is quite organized. At least that's what they have managed to show. But with time, what it has shown, like, by the exit of these players, is that there are actually some things that are not right when it comes to management. Why it has been looked at as the yardstick for basketball in the country, the things that happened in 2024 pose a lot of questions. If actually, in terms of management, they should be the yardstick. You know, when players departure under those circumstances, and then they come out and talk about the reasons for their departure, and it is actually not basketball reasons, and it is kind of administrative reasons. You question, and these are senior players who have been with the club for the better part of the success. Obviously, for a team that has had this much success, of course, you continue having the success coming, but what this shows is that there are some questions, there are some management issues at the club, that's for sure.
Vianney, do you think this Oilers team can, for example, replicate what they've done in the last 10 seasons going forward with what has happened around the team?
Well, I still think that they can, simply because if you look at the larger part of the league, and this is something that we've discussed with Kaweru for quite a while now. I think how many years we've been talking about the same issues of club administration. I think that because of the way City Oilers are organized, even when they are not at their best, the level of organization that they have makes it very difficult for the rest of the teams to cope with them or to match them, and that is why I feel that the rest of the teams in the top flight have got to try and at least get to that level. Of course, some are trying. You can see Namongo Blazers are trying to get there. You can see maybe KRU also trying to get there. Yeah. But you just don't think that they've got maybe the financial muscle that City Oilers have, and that makes a very big difference. And that's why you saw that even at the end of last season, even when many of us felt that the team was significantly weakened, they still went ahead and won the championship without dropping so much sweat. You saw what they did in the quarterfinal. It was a sweep. In the semi-final, it was a sweep. They went into the final again against KRU Titans, and it was another sweep. So that was very easy, and for many neutrals, I'm sure it was very disappointing that other teams could not step up and match City Oilers.
Vianney, maybe the question here as we conclude on the City Oilers matter is what should they do better, because there are things they've not done better. Kaweru pointed out administrative issues that players have shared, especially with finances, and also a structure at the club as City Oil, or a franchise, if I could use that word. Maybe what should they do better for them to be
bigger than what they are right now?
Not bigger, but to be an example of teams in Uganda, and also other teams to look up to them if they have to anyway in East Africa.
I actually understand your question. I think one of the biggest problems now that is encumbering City Oilers is that because of the so much success that they've had in the Ugandan basketball spectrum, they don't seem to feel that there's a lot of competition. So that has also made them stagnate at a level, and you think that as a club they need to start looking at teams that are much bigger than them to try and get to that level. That is what
in every sense of the word.
In every sense of the word. They've got, of course, I'm sure they're not going to be at the level of Al Ahly very soon, because these are multi-million-dollar kind of setups, but they've got to try and aspire and be bigger than what they are right now by looking at the more established teams and what they're able to do. Because if they continue measuring themselves against the Ugandan setup, then it's going to leave them stagnated, and that's the reason why you probably will not see them competing consistently at the ball. But like we said earlier, that requires also the resources being invested in. They need to bring in bigger, better players, and for them to be at a level that can make them be considered an international team.
And I also think the structure-wise, the structure I think also needs to be more clearer, more set up. As City Oil, the titles that you've won and all. I think those are things that also have to be considered going forward.
Or like the structure has got to be well articulated. That this is the chairman, this is maybe the CEO, this that kind of thing. If it's a communications person, because we don't seem to know who is who. The only thing we know is that Haji Santu is basically the overseer of the club, and that's it.
Absolutely. So that's something they need to improve on. But Franklin, let's move to the national side of basketball this year. Really, the Silverbacks and Gazelles have not had that much of activity to say, but their juniors have had a lot of say this year, especially when they qualified for the under 18 Afro Basket, the junior Gazelles and the junior Silverbacks. First of all, the qualifiers got everyone excited here in Kampala, put up a show. Your analysis of the under 18 and how they made the headlines in Kampala and in South Africa.
Just a little bit before I go into the under 18s, I think the Silverbacks had an opportunity to play in the AfroBasket qualifiers for next year. It wasn't a bad or good first outing. Of course, they got a winner against Nigeria, but we lost games that many thought would win against Libya, which wasn't a good thing, really, for the Silverbacks, but we're hopeful that next year, in February when the qualifiers return, should be much better. But talking about the under 18s, one of the things that I think started back in 2008 when Ambrose Tassobi had just taken over this presidency, that he wanted Uganda to compete at all levels, starting from the junior level, if success is to be gotten at national team basketball. And thank God, and the administrators that have come after that, they have kept their feet on ground to have underage teams competing each and every year. Whenever there are tournaments, they are competing. And this year, when the junior Silverbacks and the junior Gazelles had opportunity to compete in the under 18s, of course, following from the under 16 last year, and the same boys and girls who are competing in under 18, you can see consistency, at least, that it is the same boys and girls who were competing in under 16 and now competing in under 18. And because it is the same group, you're going to have the results, because these are players who are playing at the same level. Every time Uganda is hosting a tournament at Lugogo, small as it is, sharp as it is always going to light up, whether it's at national team level, whether it is at under age level. It is always going to be. Uganda is a basketball mad country. It is a small fraternity, but they love their basketball and all that. So I think when they see their own players competing here against a foreigner, they're always going to show up. And thank God the junior Gazelles were at another level. But the pressure, there's always no basketball in Uganda without pressure. You're always going to feel that. And the game against Rwanda, I think, showed a lot of that there's always going to be pressure in that final.
Yeah, unforgettable game.
But Jovi, the future for me looks bright for Uganda in basketball. You look at Resten Andagwe, Anyango, these are girls who are with the junior Gazelles. True. Then you look at Rujete, you look at Serunjo Jipita. You're really convinced that it's something that is going to play a huge role for Uganda to perform well on the continent.
Well, it looks like, and I think that when people watch the under 18s, both the boys and the girls, there was that sense of excitement and heightened expectations that if these girls and boys are well nurtured, and you've got to give credit to some of the schools like Chibuli, St. Noah, that have really done, of course St. Mary's Chitende as well, they've done a very big job in nurturing many of these talents. The future looks very, very bright, but the issue is going to be how is the transition handled there, because after they're played in the under 18s, what happens next? Because they need to keep having competition, because let's look back at 2022. How many of those girls or the boys that played in the under 18 sides of 2022? Remember those teams. Right now, when you look at those teams, you possibly look at Sheila Lamunu and maybe Sylvia who plays for UCU Lady Cannons. Those two. I think Sylvia Nantong. Those are the two prominent ones. So where are the others? For example, there was Zoe Malinga, the daughter of Henry Malinga.
Yes.
She's at St. Noah. We need to see more of those girls that played in 2022 right now, knocking on the door of the top flight, or even the boys. What happened to the boys team that played then, although they did not qualify for the main cup, in the Africa Cup that was in Madagascar? But we need to know how the transition is being handled. And I think that that's going to be the biggest challenge. Has always been the case for Uganda, is that the underage tournaments, quite a number of players come through, but then they fizzle away before you know it. It's going to be intentional that these people, once they finish this stage, they're going to this stage, and there's going to be competition for them. But then the problem is that there is that gap that after now, you're not going to see any more competition for them, and
becomes a bit hard for
it becomes very difficult to see them play again, and at the end you're going to see them disappear from the scene.
I think what has been happening is that I mean right now I think there are more opportunities to get these girls and boys in colleges. They may not be Division 1 colleges, but at least they get into playing college basketball for 3 years. And obviously the door was paved by
Jen Asinde, for example.
Jen Asinde, you want to talk about
Claire
Lamunu, you know. They paved the way, and at least you can say that the girls are now going into playing college basketball in the US. And once it opens like that, obviously, just as it was in football, like when somebody opens the door, they will now start thinking about Uganda as a source of basketball talent. And when you look at the boys, for example, when you have Nkugu at Vermont, you have Peter at I think Southwestern College.
Peter Sanjay.
Yes, at Southwestern College. So you see there is a pathway for
their development.
For their development, and the most important thing is that there has to be a better effort to get these kids, at least the talented kids, into better schools, better basketball playing schools. I mean colleges in the US. And if that happens, obviously you're going to see even the national teams at the high level playing really well.
All right. So that's the basketball for you. We've got to keep moving, gentlemen, and we shall move to cricket, which I think had one of the biggest headlines this year in Ugandan sport. The cricket cranes playing at the World Cup was up there, top. One of the things that Uganda was so proud of, and not only going at the World Cup but picking a victory against Papua New Guinea. Of course, losses to Afghanistan, West Indies. Should I say expected losses, really, with due respect to the cricket cranes? But for them going there and getting that result against Papua New Guinea and playing at the World Cup must have been very huge, Vianney.
Absolutely. I think that those are the things that we've basically been dreaming of for a lifetime. I remember when in 2004 we had the under-19s qualifying for the World Cup.
Yes.
And then in 2006 they repeated it. And everybody was talking about those kids that had the Musalis, that had the Karashanis, that they would one day lead Uganda maybe to the World Cup because that's how talented they were. But then somehow it just didn't happen the way that many people had expected, because now you look at Davis Karashani has retired from the sport. Musali the same, has retired from the sport. Yet these are still very young men. But you can see that sometimes the frustrations of the game can get you out of it, because the team kept struggling on end. Now, out of the blue, this work that was done, that started by Lawrence Mahatlani, the South African coach, and then followed up by so much cricket activity that was done by the Uganda Cricket Association to try and expose these players, and in the end of it all, the result was earning that sport, and it was huge. And I can tell you that those players will live long in history as legends of the sport for having represented Uganda at a World Cup, such a huge occasion for them having for the country at large, but also for them having graced such an auspicious occasion,
especially Franco Nsubuga. Anyways, Franklin Kaweru, first of all, your take on us playing at the World Cup, but what does the future of Uganda cricket look like? Because after the World Cup, we had a lot of, I don't want to say scandals, but there was a lot of, things that happened, especially regarding players' monies that they were supposed to earn from the World Cup and stuff like that. It hasn't really rubbed in well. Even now, you can see a couple of players are out of the picture. Roger Mukasa, Simon Sesazi, Brian Masaba retired as T20 captain and T20 from T20 cricket. What do you make of that?
Let me first put even context to what playing at the World Cup means.
Yes.
In team sports, only rugby sevens and netball. If you want to add lacrosse, have played at the World Cup. That is how big it is. Being at the World Cup means for Uganda in any sport. So one thing that when you get success as this, it should be a springboard to better things. Ideally, when you come back home, one thing that the association would use this as a springboard to
making sure that it becomes a constant.
Now, when you come back and then players are literally complaining about their monies from a World Cup year, not even days after a World Cup, that doesn't make sense at all.
It doesn't go well.
It doesn't go down well. Like it does not show that as an association you're even committed into repeating this kind of success that you achieved. You almost want to build that it was a success by mistake. But of course, you cannot say that because of the work that Lawrence Matalin put in when he was coach to get the team to this point where they are going to play. Obviously, that is across the sport that every time a player is going to talk about finances, in discipline, and I think as sports administrators in this country, that is one thing that needs to change about
it has
them.
To change, and it cuts across.
It cuts across,
almost
and it's not just cricket,
sporting disciplines.
Anything to do with finances, you're in discipline. But again, what does this success mean for Uganda getting to the World Cup? It means that now young players can aspire to be at that level. Now, are there steps that you can see right now that are being taken to have the same kind of success? For now, it is difficult to tell. The obvious answer would be no, not yet, because you want to look at the underage competitions. For example, obviously the under-19 team will be competing to get a place at the Junior World Cup next year, and one thing the association should have a better effort of getting these players active right now. After a small failure of the under-19 girls this very actually get into the under-19 World Cup, you want to say, look, it has to start from the junior level, and these players keep playing together until the senior level, and that's how the success can be maintained. And if the association is not willing to make that kind of sacrifice, this will be a one-off.
That's true.
Vianney, about some of the younger players that are now on the national team and are trying to step it up to fill the void of the big boys, how do you look at that? Do you see that as progress, and are you positive they're going to really be a mainstay on the cricket national team?
I think so. Some of them are already showing that. Of course, Juma Miyagi being one of them. I feel Robinson Obuya is also another that has stepped up, and you can see that he's getting his place on the team, and that is impressive to see that there are some younger players that are coming on. You also feel that the fact that these boys were at one time playing with the under-19s, that was I think when they went to the World Cup again in 2022.
Yes.
The under-19 World Cup in 2022. So you can see that there's been some very good transition for these young boys to get into the senior team. I still feel that athletes like Simon Sesaz is still a young boy. There's no question about it, and you can see how much progress he has made to be Uganda's lead batsman for quite some time. Now you can see that there's a pattern that is being followed of ushering in youngsters to fill the gaps, and to see that even when the seniors retire, that we have players that are going to really cover up those departures. I know it's not very easy to just get players from, say, under 16, under 19, and then they easy just transition into the national team. But from what we are seeing now, you look at that national team, and there are so many young boys that are now are now establishing themselves as mainstays.
Yeah, finally, Franklin, the Challenge League B, tournament that we hosted here, the qualifiers. Your take on Uganda's performance, and maybe if the remaining 2 rounds is something that people should watch out for, and maybe if Uganda are going to go out and seal the top 2 position.
To be honest, I was a bit surprised with Uganda's performance, especially against Italy. I thought Italy was batting heavy, if I may put it that way. it is a team that is capable of scoring runs and a lot of runs. But trust Uganda. I mean, what has stood out always for Uganda has been its bowling and fielding. And it has always bailed us. And in that game, it was the same thing. I think what also changed this time around is that our batting was a little bit stable. When you have the captain scoring half centuries in the middle, you have Dinesh scoring half centuries in the middle. I think our middle order batting stood their ground this time round, and we are counting on that. Hopefully in February when they go to Hong Kong for the second round of the qualifiers, and that is going to be the defining tournament if we advance to the next qualifying round.
We'll leave the cricket at that and get into the rugby, which also had quite a lot of talking points. Why? Because Uganda hosted the Rugby Africa Cup at Nambole. We all remember the Zimbabwe Sables and what they did. They eventually came out to win that one. It wasn't a good show for Team Uganda. But before we go to the Rugby Cranes, guys, briefly, Heathen sweeping everything. There was to win, including the new format league, or the new league format which was put out,
which I didn't like.
Your take on the rugby season before you get to the Rugby Cranes?
Well, I thought that it has been dominated by Heathens. Not that they did not face stiff competition. I don't think it was easy for them. I thought that it was a tough season for whoever competed in it. Of course, we expected that Cobs, Heathens, Pirates, Hippos surprised us when they got in, especially after the number of players that departed the club. You thought that they would probably be affected, but they seem to have a very good system down there in Jinja that is producing and bringing players. And of course, the Owen Mugogos, you look at Yasin Waiswa, and you can see that they really have some really good players that are coming through. You saw them even in the sevens. But when you look at how Heathens, I think they did one thing better than everybody else, is that their focus was really up top in terms of how they prepared for the season, especially after failing the previous season and not winning the league and not winning the sevens. They came in with a lot of determination.
They had a big squad too.
Yeah, they also had a big squad, that's true, but I also feel that Heathens were also helped by the fact that Cobs struggled because of their administrative problems that they've had over the last couple of years. And then for some reason, I think Pirates started slow. I don't know why. They seem to have not been with the right kind of approach and attitude that you would expect from a defending champion. They seem not to have been as tenacious as they had been in 2023. They were not as hungry. I felt from the way they played. You saw even the way they lost games in the sevens. They were not as hungry as they had been the previous season, and I think that is one thing that in many ways also disappointed their fans, because fans expected, for you to be a great side, you've got to be able to defend a title. That's what great sides are made of. Now, Pirates have a very good side, but the fact that they come in and win after some years and then they fall off is not a good sign. For great sides, they dominate, they conquer, and that's something that's a message that Marvin Odong had been saying from the time that they won the league in that was in March 2023. And when they came in and did the same thing in the sevens, he said that he wanted the team that would dominate and upstage Heathens and Cobs' dominance. But somehow his side came in last year, in this year in 2024, a bit lackluster and a bit maybe complacent, or they thought that things would be easy because of the kind of form. And they nearly won it, by the way, on the last day. They nearly won it. But I still feel that because of the way they started the season,
it was always hard.
Heathens were more hungry for it, and that's the reason why. Because you look even at the sevens and how they lost, you felt that it was just few errors because of maybe a bit of complacency and lacking in that kind of hunger that is needed to win.
I don't think Pirates had enough training during the season. From what I know, they were not consistently training, and that went to affect them, as well as the women's side as well, the Black Pearls. They were not training consistent. I think they had some I don't want to call it small, but they had some financial issues, I think, during the year.
Okay.
That could not make them train consistently and all that. Of course, obviously, when you have a squad of over 30 players training, you know what comes with that. Financially, you have to be a bit strong. And if that is not happening, it becomes a problem. And you would see with the kind of playing that we're playing, Pirates is a team of structured rugby. And you could barely see that in some of the games, and you see a team that doesn't really train consistently. And it's the same with Black Pearls as well. So I think they were not ready
to win.
To win. You cannot ask for more than they delivered, really, under the circumstances.
Yes, but he then stepped up and you give them their flowers.
Yes. I mean, they recruited very well. They were very, very consistent. And again, they took care of what he then is known of. I mean, when it comes to forward playing, it's good. Now, when you add very good backs to that, the 12s and all that, it is now going to be taken to another level. And that is what they did now. They were good backs and forwards and all across the spheres of the game. So it was always going to be difficult to stop events with that kind of mentality that they had.
Okay, the Rugby Africa Cup came with a lot of pomp, excitement, and we all as Ugandans were hopeful that the Rugby Cranes were going to, marshal that and win it, but it was a different thing altogether. We fell short, Zimbabwe winning it. Your take on the Rugby Cranes this year?
Well, I think that so much in terms of expectations, but so little that was achieved. I think in the eyes of many fans, they didn't expect the Rugby Cranes to lose at the quarter-final stage. Such a dramatic game it was, going down 22 at halftime against Zimbabwe and then bouncing back and scoring 20 points. They came to within a breadth of hair to actually turn over that game. But then if you look at even how the other games followed up, even against teams like I think Senegal, you could see how the team was laboring through those games, and you can see how those other teams, Senegal, Ivory Coast, have closed the gap on Uganda suddenly. And yet when you look at the rankings, you feel that Uganda, the Burkina Fasos of this world, you feel that Uganda should be at a much higher level. And I think it still also comes down to the same thing like Franklin pointed out. I don't think that we've given the 15th side as much attention as the 7th side, and the team has suffered. And you could see that it also happened in when it got to the Elgon Cup, that there'll be those, there are those results that come by, and they sort of like create a facade that you're good, like that. They are the hoodwink. You are like that 27-25 loss to Kenya in the first leg in Nairobi, in Ngong Road, created the impression that Uganda were going to come down here and run over Kenya. But once Kenya went back and prepared again, they just knew exactly what they needed to do, and they stopped Uganda. And I think it still comes down to one thing: how the rugby 15 side is prepared. And I don't think they get enough preparation, and that needs to change. And that's the only way we can stand a chance come 2025 June for the Rugby Cranes to actually get a step higher than what they achieved this year in the Rugby Africa Cup.
Yeah, Franklin, what do you take home from the Rugby Cranes this year? What are those things that probably you take note of and you think maybe should be better going forward?
I want one thing that I think every Ugandan rugby fan should be up about with this 15 side is that it got new players into playing test rugby.
Test games,
when you get players and take them into a camp in South Africa for some time, and then you introduce them to test rugby, the young players come in, like that is the kind of thing that you want to see being done consistently. And of course, it doesn't get any simpler next year because it is a World Cup qualifying year. And every team that is going to come here is going to come looking for a World Cup slot.
Yeah.
You are not going to expect the kind of Namibia that came
they're
here.
going to come start raving mad.
Zimbabwe now feels they belong properly.
You're not talking about Kenya.
Even Kenya, they're going to work to improve. This won't be tougher. That's what he's saying.
It's what I'm saying. And by the way, we are playing Kenya in the first game. We have gauged ourselves against Kenya, and we know we are not as good as Kenya. So we know that what we need to do is beat Kenya to start with.
But maybe just a little, just to add, and maybe this is something that maybe I feel that Franklin needs to add his 2 cents too. Like the 27-25. Just how could it have been an outlier, really? Are you going to tell me that you expected the return leg the way it turned out to be for Uganda at Kings Park? Really?
No,
you expected that?
No. What happens is, generally speaking, I think when it comes to set plays, Uganda is really, really good. Set plays, okay? Because we know we have fast backs.
Yeah.
Okay. We know we can move that ball very, very fast.
Yeah.
I know that now.
Which Kenya didn't allow.
Which Kenya did not allow. When you come into the second leg, they force you to play with your forwards.
Where Uganda is weak.
Very well. We're not going to thrive. And obviously teams do their homework. They do their preparations knowing that this is where Uganda is strong at. Let's take that away. And idea it has to be on Ghana coaches to see like how do we use our best, how do we put our best foot forward, you know, and until that
stop teams from bulldozing the team.
If you know they're going to kind of look for what you're good at and take that away, how do you counter that as a team? And it is pretty much that. It's not that we will far off as a rugby playing, but
just a few
a few things that we need to do.
Like what? Like get Peter into the pop side?
Oh.
Vianney.
No, it's a suggestion. I'm not saying that. What do you think? Because we need pops like Peter.
The rugby discussion is done.
As a general view, Ugandan players are not well conditioned. Simple. Not as well conditioned as Kenyans, as Zimbabwe, as Namibia.
Okay. Thank you very much, Franklin, for that insight on rugby, and of course, John Vianney Nsimbe. Guys, we've spoken about rugby, cricket, basketball, and all that. Yeah. But the biggest story in Uganda this year was Uganda going at the Olympics in Paris, and we all know that we got gold from the expected person, 10,000 meters, Joshua Cheptegei, but at the same time felt so sad when he pulled out of the 5,000 meters.
Absolutely.
As well as his colleague Jacob Kiplimo. But let's begin with that analysis. A bigger contingent at the Olympics. I think 10 men athletes, 11 women. That's in athletics. Then you had swimming. You had Kathleen Noble with rowing, and then you also had cycling. You know, Kajimo. Your analysis of Team Uganda. Of course, we'll get to the medals and athletics.
I think what we got is basically what we expected under the circumstances. I just don't think that we've got to a stage where we can say that all our athletes are at that top level, because you see, to get to that top level it takes time, but also it takes an investment. That was the word that I was looking for. They've got to have the investment, has got to be there, the training has got to be there, and the exposure has got to be there. But you still have many of our athletes that are really working on their own to get themselves ready, and that's something that we need. Yes, there's support that comes in the Olympic year from the Uganda Olympic Committee, but you think that support should start now, should have started now, so that by the time you get to the next Olympics, these athletes are ready. So I think that the biggest challenge is the structures to get our athletes ready in the different spheres that they are in is still a bit wanting. And if we can get that, then maybe our expectations should go up. The people that are getting us the medals have been adopted by top coaches that are foreign and things like Joshua Cheptegei, like Jacob Kiplimo, and it has helped them really improve. Are all their colleagues exposed to the same? Not necessarily.
Absolutely.
So that's what. Do they have the same kind of resources to actually get to that level as Joshua or Kiplimo or Peruth? And not necessarily.
Franklin, you're one of those people who really during the Olympics time are very busy because of the work here at Kawowo, and credit to Kawowo because they actually sent a team to the Olympics.
You know,
in
a team
Paris.
of journalists. People may think you you mean a team of runners.
A team of journalists, Vianney. Cheptegei winning gold, Cheptegei falling short but also winning a medal in the 3,000 meter steeplechase. Basically for the athletics, what's your take on Team Uganda?
Let me first put it this way. From 2019 to 2024, we did not have an athletics track in Uganda. Let us start from there.
Yeah.
That is what, 5 years?
Yeah.
Because Nambole was closed off.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever success you achieve,
that has got to be a mere bearing. Yeah.
Because there is no way you can take a team when your athletes are literally training from outside Uganda. For them to access a proper track, they have to go outside the country. It is disheartening in a way, because I live around Wegere. Prior to 2019, I used to be at Nambole quite regularly, seeing Nanyon and Nakai train from the outside pitch.
Yeah.
And once they closed that facility off,
it became hard.
Problems started. And from that point, you can see how these two girls have deteriorated, slowly deteriorated, and
lack of facilities.
After a world championship in 2019, Nakai cannot compete anymore because look, we don't have a proper track at home. And when whatever success that you get at the Olympics, just thank God, because there is nothing at home. But I think going forward, that now we have a track, there should be programs for athletes. At the time when Cheptegei went into Paris, when he needed just that one medal that he got, and he spoke about it over time, that this is the medal that I need. Was it disappointing that they opted out of the 5K? Of course. That was probably another medal point for us, but
wasn't to be.
Do that. I think what needs to be done right now is that the preparations have to start now.
The earlier the better. But the biggest talking point in the Olympics was why Joshua Cheptegei and Jacob Kiplimo pulled out of the 5,000 meters. Vianney.
I know.
What actually happened?
Well, it was pretty disappointing. I think that so many people had hinged a lot of the expectations on Uganda getting another medal in the 5,000 meters. The information we got from there is that the athletes were not in the best physical condition following the rigors of the 10,000 meters, so they couldn't go into that race. It was quite disappointing, I must admit that. But then also I think the health of the athletes is also important to be taken into consideration. And I think that at the end of the day, the athletes themselves can give as much as they can. If their bodies are not in the right physical shape,
they can only do so much.
Yeah, they cannot force themselves. Yeah, but more than even us, they wanted to win those medals. I'm sure that they wanted to win those medals, but the fact that they could not push themselves beyond the 10,000 meters, then I'm sure that there were so many underlying issues that were bothering them physically. Yeah,
just as well. Maybe okay.
I want to believe right now, as a country, I think we need to choose where we have a competitive advantage and have as much effort put there to start as possible. Thank God now the high altitude center is up and running. Hopefully we are going to see very many athletes from the Nsimbe region coming through. And with that is going to help. I hope there is a deliberate effort to have as many long distance runners coming out of that region now
that
as
should
possible.
Be the case.
Yeah.
Okay, but of course, in as much as we celebrated Team Uganda at the Olympics with Cheptegei winning gold and Cheptegei coming off with silver, there was a sad story, and that's what I want to wrap up this interview with, of Rebecca Cheptegei, who passed away after her boyfriend doused her with petrol. Of course, she first struggled in hospital with severe burns, but it's a story that so many people picked up and talked about how female athletes have faced a lot of challenges with regards to their talent and winning monies, and their partners always want to take advantage and control them, which is something that really is absurd. And just like that, Uganda lost an athlete in Rebecca Cheptegei.
Yeah, it's a very sad story it was, and it's sort of like in many ways poured water on the success that the country had realized from the Olympics, because it became such a worldwide talked about story. It just spread like a wildfire, and it is so disappointing that somebody could lose their life in that kind of circumstance because of disagreements with the partner. And I think that it is incumbent on us, it's incumbent on the country at large to really spearhead the move on trying to eliminate gender-based violence, and also to find out what causes it, because I think that's something that is very important, that we need to actually discuss what would lead a young soul like Rebecca Cheptegei being burnt by her husband after she just returned from the Olympics, and how can we avoid it? I think those are key talking points that we need to confront now, and not later, but now.
Okay, your parting shots.
Yeah, we talk about violence, but the most important thing I think that needs to be picked on is that education is very important. Education for especially people who are around these athletes. Education is very important. I mean, they need to deliberately put knowledge in the heads of these people. You're talking friends, you're talking family, you're talking relatives, partners, and all that. I think there is an education that needs to be deliberate for sensitization, yes, with these people on what it means for a person to be at that level, because when you're running for a country, you're now a national treasure. Yes. You're not an everyday, an ordinary person. You know, so there has to be an effort to
protect
you know, that kind of thing as national treasure, and that starts with doing the basic education of the people around those athletes.
All right, thank you guys for joining me here on pitch side. We've basically broken down all those major talking points that have happened in 2024. Thank you very much, Franklin Kaweru. Webale oluzungu luweddeyo ndoza mukabada. Unprofessional John Vianney Nsimbe. Like always, we keep telling you, keep it on pitch side. Subscribe, share, comment, keep the love going, and we grow together. So cheers guys, and a happy 2025.